Halloween, one of the greatest slasher franchises of all time. Or is it? No, these are pretty freaking good movies. While these movies are definitely imperfect, they do have a lot of charm. In the Halloween franchise, we primarily follow the killer Michael Myers as he wreaks havoc on the small town of Haddonfield, Illinois, always on Halloween night. Like, seriously, it's rare that anything in these movies takes place on any other day than Halloween. There is also one instance where Michael Myers is completely absent, but we'll get to that in a bit. Michael Myers is explained to be the embodiment of pure evil, and boy, oh boy, am I excited to talk about these movies. Now, to preface a little bit, Halloween is one of the slasher franchises that does deviate into a number of different timelines, so try to keep up and let's get started with where it all began. Halloween, released in 1978, is a certified classic and really acts as part one to a two-part story. It follows Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, and I'm sure if you're watching this, you generally know how the movie plays out. Michael Myers escapes, stalks and kills a few babysitters, and by the end of the movie, Laurie ends up escaping. Also, Dr. Loomis is here. Remember him, he's going to be important for the first timeline especially. It ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, but overall it tells a pretty fun little slasher story. This movie will be the most important as it is the backbone for every single timeline, except for the one with goop robots. And I honestly don't have much to say about this one. It's the foundation for what have become some iconic tropes in the horror and slasher genre, but it is also far from my favorite of the Halloween movies. Not to mention, it uses the same two songs over and over and over again. So let's move on to... Halloween 2 picks up right where the first one left off. Same Halloween night. Laurie is escorted to the hospital to be treated for her wounds, and Michael evades the cops. He finds his way to the hospital that Laurie is being treated at, and one by one, picks off the people who are unlucky enough to be there. This one I think is looked at pretty fondly by many fans of Halloween, and for good reason. Michael really ups the ante on the kills and gets a little more creative this time, and his presence as the embodiment of evil really starts to be felt in this one. Also, this one kid just dies and it's awesome. We also get more Dr. Loomis, woo! And he drops some crazy lore on us when he tells us that Laurie is actually Michael's
sister.
This will be kind of relevant for the other timelines, but is especially important for the first timeline, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Halloween 2 overall builds off of the first one in some pretty fun ways, and for now, ends our time with Laurie Strode. I like this one a lot. Again, not one of my absolute favorites from the franchise, but it is a huge step up from the first one and definitely deserves a watch. Now, let's talk about the most controversial Halloween movie of the entire series. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Oh boy, where to begin? Okay, so Halloween 4 is what we're going to talk about actually. No, I'm just kidding. We'll talk about Halloween 3. Some consider it a cult classic. Some consider it the worst thing ever put to film. Possibly the worst idea of all time. I believe I've found myself in that second boat personally. This movie was such a bore to sit through. Prior to watching it, I didn't know anything about the plot other than the fact that Michael Myers is absent, and this is entirely disconnected from the other movies as they were attempting to shift the franchise into more of an anthology. I think this is a really cool concept, and this movie is a really cool concept. The title and overall vibes are awesome, but my oh my, does this movie stink. So basically, we follow great value Tom Selleck, and he falls in love with this young girl who may or may not be a goop robot. We'll get to that in a bit. And he has like a wife, and she hates him, and his kids get these Halloween masks from this mask company called Silver Shamrock. What is going on? Then there's this super annoying song that's like, 8 more days till Halloween, 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 8 more days till Halloween, Silver Shamrock. And it just plays a bunch, and it sucks. Anyways, something happens, and great value Tom Selleck and Hot Girl go to the headquarters of Silver Shamrock. And there are like weird businessmen goop robots that keep crushing people's heads, and great value Tom Selleck sleeps with a hot young girl, and they go on a tour or something, and who cares. Then you find out that like Silver Shamrock is evil or something, and they stole Stonehenge or part of it or something, and it's magic and you can turn people into bugs and snakes. So basically they want everyone to wear the masks, and then that will then turn them into bugs and snakes, and it's like like witchcraft or something. It actually has nothing to do with witches, really. Don't watch this movie. If you want a more comprehensive breakdown of this movie, go watch my brother Jackson's video. I'll link it in the description. But in my opinion, this is a bad and awful movie, and you can just forget about it as we move forward. It's completely irrelevant to the other timelines. And also, the hot girl is definitely a goop robot. So, yeah. I do love me some horror movies with goop, though. Don't get me wrong. I love the goop. I love it. It's great. Goop. Goop for life. Okay, so Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Pretty self-explanatory. Michael's back, and this is one of my favorites of the Halloween series. This movie follows the daughter of Laurie Strode, Jamie Strode, and she's living with like a foster family, and she has a big sister type character named Rachel. She's kind of our main protagonist of this movie, and they have a pretty awesome relationship that I just found super fun to watch as the movie went on. Also, Dr. Loomis is back, and yeah, he's here, and he's always angry at everyone and just wants to kill Michael. We also get a huge lore drop that Laurie is dead, which is kind of insane. So Timeline 1, Laurie is only present in the first 2 movies. So in this timeline, we find out that Michael Myers wants everyone in his family dead. Kind of a weak plot, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but again, I just found this movie a ton of fun, and so I was able to kind of set that aside a little bit. Feels kind of like an episode of Goosebumps mixed with Scream. Obviously, it doesn't fully play out like a Scream movie. You don't really have the mystery of who the killer is, but it does have some of those vibes. So Halloween 4, really good. Definitely super amazing after the previous movie. And I gave it a 4 stars on Letterboxd, so watch this one. Okay, so then we have Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. I'm going to be honest, this one's a little bit weaker than the 4th one, and 4, 5, and 6 kind of all blend together in my mind, but I still did really like 4 a lot. 5 is alright. Of course, it's a continuation of Timeline 1, so Michael's still out for his family's blood. Jamie is mute for most of this movie, and Rachel dies at the very beginning of the movie. There's also a party at a barn, and I'm convinced it inspired the barn party in Scream 4. Not a whole lot really happens in this one, but there's a great sequence towards the end where Michael's chasing Jamie through, I believe, what was his old house, and that was a really fun just sequence of events to watch. Loomis ends up saving the day, and yeah, that's about all I have to say about this one. Fun watch, fun continuation of Halloween 4, and we are just about done with Timeline 1. And then lastly, to go ahead and wrap up Timeline number 1 for us, we have Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. I'm going to be honest, this one isn't great, but it is Paul Rudd's first movie, and that honestly made it a lot more fun to watch. Paul Rudd plays Tommy Doyle. He's the kid that Laurie babysat in the very first Halloween movie, and he has become obsessed with Michael, learning everything that he can about him. And we also learned that as a baby in this one, Michael was cursed by a cult, so that's why he can't really die. That's why he keeps coming back, and why he's always surviving those gunshots and everything. Technically, this is the only timeline where that is canon, but my headcanon is that in every timeline, he was cursed by a cult. So blah, 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 blah. Jamie dies and has a baby, and Loomis is here. And they end up defeating Michael, and then the movie ends with a shot of Michael still being alive. Unfortunately, we never got a follow-up to this one, so kind of ends on a cliffhanger, but still a fun ending to the first timeline. Okay, so to recap real quick, we have for Timeline 1, in this order, Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween 4, Halloween 5, and Halloween 6. And Halloween 3, we just throw that in the trash. That's not relevant at all to anything. Okay, anyways, so next one we have is beautifully titled Halloween H2O 20 Years Later. Or as I like to call it, Michael Myers H2O Fish Out of Water. This is unironically my favorite of the Halloween movies. I don't really know if that's a hot take or not. I don't know what other people think of this movie, but I don't care, because this one just was genuinely awesome. So, as I said before, first timeline's over, so H2O is the first movie in Timeline 2. So, in this timeline, Laurie lives a wonderful life. Has a son named John, played by young Josh Hartnett, and they live in sunny California, where Laurie is a teacher at a private school, and her son attends said school. Also, Michelle Williams is in this, and she plays John's girlfriend, and she's great in this. So as the title implies, this takes place 20 years after the original Halloween, and Michael is back for blood. He somehow finds his way to California to finish what he started by whacking Laurie finally, and ends up killing a bunch of other people along the way. I don't know exactly what it is about this movie that I love so much, but it was just so fun to watch the entire time. Michael was awesome and creepy and just had some fantastic kills, and it was just so refreshing to see Laurie again, and yeah, this one's awesome. This one's so awesome. The movie ends with Laurie beheading Michael, and he's dead. Or is he? Halloween Resurrection is the final film in Timeline 2, and it's just bad. It's not good. Laurie dies in the first scene, and the rest of the movie follows a bunch of college kids filming in Michael's home, and he ends up killing them all. And if you're wondering how he's back since he was beheaded in the last one, well, it wasn't actually him who was beheaded. It was some random guy that he put in his clothes so that Laurie would be confused and think she was killing him. So he wasn't actually resurrected in this movie, and this movie sucks, and none of the characters were likable, so their deaths meant nothing. Moving on. So, to recap again, Timeline 2 is Halloween 1, Halloween 2, Halloween Fish Out of Water, and Halloween the Second Coming of Christ. Halloween 2018 takes place 40 years after the original, and it ignores the events of every other previous movie except for the very first Halloween. So in Timeline 3, Halloween 2 has been scrapped. But trust me, this is a good thing because this timeline is mostly awesome. So in this timeline, Laurie has a daughter and a granddaughter, and her daughter, Karen, was raised really strictly and taught how to defend herself because in this timeline, Laurie has PTSD. Her granddaughter, Allison, is kind of our main protagonist, and everyone in this movie just does a really good job and just seem to have a lot of fun with it. Michael goes hard with the kills in this one, some of his most brutal yet, and there are so many fun little visual callbacks to all the previous movies, including the bug snake masks from Halloween 3. Not really much else to say about this one other than just watch it. It's a blast and it has some really awesome kills. The follow-up to Halloween 2018 is Halloween Kills. This takes place immediately after Halloween 2018, very similarly to the original two films, and this one is almost as good as its predecessor. This one has a few sequences that drag, but essentially all of Haddonfield has been sent into chaos as they realize Michael is back and has killed like a bunch of people. This one actually opens up with Michael killing like 10 firefighters, and it is just so metal and awesome and sick. So the whole town is wanting to kill Michael, and they of course by the end of the movie fail. Again, I think this is a must watch, and watching this and Halloween 2018 back to back is just super fun. So set aside like 3.5 hours and go watch both of these. So to cap off Timeline 3, we have Halloween Ends, very fittingly titled. Really all I have to say about this one is that the first about 30 minutes are pretty awesome, and the last about 20 minutes are pretty great as well, and a pretty good ending just in general to the Halloween franchise and to Michael Myers' story. Everything in between is pretty meh, as the main killer of the movie isn't even Michael Myers in this one. In general, Halloween Ends is the weakest of Timeline 3, but it's still a pretty good watch. So, to recap just once more, we have Timeline 3, which consists of the original Halloween, Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. Overall, I think this is the most consistently good timeline, but I still persist that Timeline 1 is my absolute favorite story of Michael Myers, and just the way that those movies play out I think is super fun. Okay, and last but certainly least, I'm just gonna briefly go over the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. There's 2 of these, and they are completely separate from everything else. Rob Zombie attempts to kind of rewrite the lore of Michael Myers and give a more modern retelling of the original 2 Halloween movies with a Rob Zombie twist. I honestly hate both of these movies so much. I think they undermine who Michael Myers is and what his motives are, and Laurie is just the worst in these two. When we were watching the second movie, we literally turned it off halfway through because it just sucked so bad. I will say, I do love the imagery of Michael being like a massive Jason Voorhees type build in this one. But other than that, these really are not my cup of tea, and I would never recommend these. Okay, so that is every one of the Halloween movies for now as of 2024. These are super fun movies. I was super happy to kind of go over these. My goal with this video, of course, was not to summarize these movies or give you every single detail about them, but just to tell you which ones I like, which ones are okay, and which ones aren't very good. I will say, overall, aside from the Rob Zombie movies, I think the Halloween franchise is generally pretty worth watching at least one time. And there's a couple in there that I definitely plan to make part of my October routine movie watching every year. And I really cannot recommend Halloween H2O enough. So, in conclusion, I hope that your biggest takeaway from this video is that Michael Myers is super metal and awesome, and that no matter how bad or good the movie he is in is, Michael Myers is the best. Thank you so much for watching. I worked really hard on this video to make sure that it would come out in time for Halloween. And so if you could give me a like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends, it would genuinely mean the world to me. I would also love to hear in the comments how you would rank the Halloween movies. And if you want to see my ranking of each of them, I have linked my letterbox in the description so that you can check out my reviews there. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.